Hi there, welcome back. So straight into the video. This is part 2. It's the follow on from last Wednesday's video where we showed you the glorious tea light holders and trinket tray with the dragonfly, which didn't defeat me this time. It worked and I'm so pleased with that. Anyway, here we are. So these are the butterfly molds that we showed you in part 1. And I'm using the glorious mica powders from one of the little towers of lots of little pots of mica powder that we got from Temu. Again, anything used in this video will be linked in the description be detailed there as to where our products are from that we've used. That will be the resin, the molds, the mica powders, the paintbrush that I'm using, which is a dry bristle paintbrush. God, can't say my words properly today. That I'm then using to pop into the pots of mica powder and then brush onto these glorious molds. Haven't used these molds before. Well, used them briefly once. Wayne used them, but haven't used them like this before now. So actually, they're taking the mica powder really well. Now look at those lovely pastel colours. As I said in my previous video, I'm a little bit obsessed with this metallic gold mica powder, which is part of the resin kit from Ghoul. That's GHGUOLE. I think I spelled that correctly. So we bought a 2-gallon capacity resin kit from them. Big amount of resin. It's great. The resin's fantastic. It's very easy to use. It's a 1-to-1 mixing ratio. Cures really well as a 2, and you'll be able to make lots of projects with it. But as part of the kit that comes with it, you get these glorious mica powders, you get lovely embellishments that you can add in, you get gold and silver foil flakes, excuse me, and you get a load of little resin pigment colours for like liquid pigment. And it's more ink, more alcohol ink rather than the actual thick opaque pigments, but those work exceptionally well as well. You'll have seen Wayne using those probably in previous videos too that we have. So there we go, just finishing up doing the rest of these molds, dusting them with the mica powder. Going to turn the mold the other way around and give it a gentle tap just to make sure you get rid of any residue. There we go. And there we go, just a very quick, almost like flyby, pardon the pun, of the butterfly molds. And there they are, both of them together. They look absolutely stunning. Now, the coasters. I'm following on, because this is part of the same collection that we did the tea light holder and the trinket tray for. So I'm using the same colours to get the same effects for the base of the coasters. So using this deep raspberry pink, the sumptuous metallic gold, and the salmony pink colour, corally colour there. Just creating this, so it's going on, I want to say almost like ombre, but it's not really. It could also be said to be an alternative colour for camouflage. Perhaps. So just applying it to the mould here. Now, with hindsight, what I would have done had I thought about this at the time properly, these things happen. Like we said before, we will show you how we do something, and if we don't think we've done it afterwards in the way that it could have been done or should have been done, then we will always say, and we'll always still upload the video, unless it is a complete 100% disaster, then we won't. But this, what I should have done is put down a very, very thin coat of white or cream coloured resin first. So it creates an opaque background for this style of effect that I'm trying to create. But I'm not going to waste the mica powder, because it wasn't till after I applied all the mica powder to every single one of the 4 molds, coaster molds, that I realised, of course, with hindsight's a great thing. If you could not have to wait till it's called hindsight and it's first sight before you actually do something. But anyway, moving on. It is what it is, and in future I will do it slightly differently. So here's Wayne. Wayne's made up the ghoul resin 1:1 mixing ratio. He's added in crystal white mica or pearlized white mica, which is actually made by it's not a Temu brand. That one is Arteza, but you can of course use the Temu brand or any other brand that you prefer using, that you like using. So very carefully, sorry, excuse me. Sorry about that. Applying the resin to the mould, and then because it was a little bit too much, he used a stir stick, turned it up on its side there, and just scraped it over the surface of the mould. There we go. Pouring a bit in the others. This has been sped up. Don't forget, do it slowly. Do it carefully. If you prefer using a dropper instead, or a pipette, then get the resin up with the pipette and put it in the moulds using the pipette. If you've got them small, the mini mixing jugs, the silicone ones, we couldn't find ours, otherwise we probably would have used those. Put some of the resin in that, pour it in with that, so you've got a lot of control over where and how much the resin is going into the mould itself. But when she's using a micro brush here, or micro brush stick without the brush bit on it, to make sure the resin gets into all those details there, because some of them are quite fine, particularly the antenna. There we go. So almost done with these. It's just filling up the rest of those there. There we go. Now we don't use all of these in the coasters, but we use the majority of them. There we are. There we go, just making sure there's resin everywhere. So here he is, he's going to pour a very small, now this was our fix, this was our solution to the issue about not putting resin in first, letting it cure, and then doing the mica powder dusting. So we agreed, look, let's try this. Put a small amount of the resin in, and then he starts off by using one of these spatula stirrers, and he's trying to move it over to the edges of the mould. Now this resin was quite thick at this point, because we used the same resin for part 1 of this in the part 1 video as we did in part 2. So this was getting a bit thick at this point, and I was saying to Wayne whilst he was doing this, why don't you use the heat gun? We were having a bit of a discussion as he was doing it, and he said, look, I'll do this one using this silicone or this plastic spatula, and then the others I'll use the heat gun, and it will be an example. It'll be a way of comparing, what's better, the heat gun or the spatula. There we go. Because I was concerned that maybe it's not got to the edges. So as you can see from this angle, he's poured some more resin in the others, and he's now using the heat gun tool to move it around. So what it does by heating it up, it makes it a bit more liquefied, if there's such a word, a bit more runny, let's say that, a bit more runny. And it's just making sure it's pushing into all the corners, which worked. It was brilliant. So we then put those aside to cure. Now this is the following day with those beautiful butterfly moulds, and I'm going to demold them for you. Now this has been sped up slightly. Take your time when demolding, because obviously you don't want to break off any of those details like the antenna there. There we are. They all came out pretty straightforward, pretty easy, which was good. Looked like they'd taken off all the mica. I've got a little bit of overspill there, which I will sort out. I'll go in with my little scissors. Here we go. There we go. The miniature scissors I've got. I love these scissors. And just trimming up whilst that overspill is still a little bit soft. It's not tacky, so you're okay by handling it without gloves on, but just snipping it up there. Don't forget, of course, when you're using resin and mica powders, protect yourself. Wear gloves if you want to. Wear gloves, wear a respirator mask, and make sure that you're in a well ventilated room. There we go. Just doing a bit more trimming up with the scissors there, so you can see what I'm doing. Like I said, this was sped up because otherwise this video would be best part of half an hour in length. There we go. It's just finishing trimming up those bits, and then look at that, gorgeous. Look at the detail on that one. Rather sweet. Would look lovely in a little girl's bedroom. These ones. And as I said, we don't use all of them in the coasters, but we do use some of them. But I thought I'd just show you all of them there. So here we go, a flyby from our friends the butterflies. Look at those. Now you could use these as pendants for necklaces, you could use them as handbag charms, you could use them as key rings, you could use them as embellishments for bookmarks. You know, I mean, some gorgeous little hanging decorations on, maybe, have you seen the trees that are the little white model trees, the white sort of more like stick-like versions? I think you probably know what I mean. Hanging from there. I mean, they're beautiful display, displayed that way. But here we go. I'm just trimming up the pink one here, getting rid of the overpour of the resin. It's very easy to do this with scissors whilst it's still a bit soft. Again, not tacky to the touch. It is cured, it's just not cured solid. So here we go with these ones with their flyby. I do love that, particularly that pink one in the bottom right with the gradation of colour. Gorgeous. Lovely. Stunning. Obsessed even. And there we go. There they are, side by side in all their glory. Again, employing a bit of artistic license, because obviously you don't get butterflies this colour in the natural world. Not that the ones in the natural world aren't beautiful. Butterflies are one of my all-time favourite things in nature. And look, that's from our previous video, the beautiful little golden miniature butterfly, the gorgeous blue one, and the little dragonfly, the miniature dragonfly there, are beautiful steampunk style butterfly. And here are the ones that we've just shown you the demold for as well. They're beautiful, 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 beautiful. I love all these colours. And look, there he is, Mr. Dragonfly himself, which was such a success in our previous video in part 1. Really, really pleased with that. So there they are, all of them together. They make a lovely collection in themselves. So these are the coasters. Now don't forget, this is a very thin layer of resin, so carefully demold, because you can see it's extremely pliable. Now where we haven't filled the coaster mold right the way to the top, it's gone up slightly at the sides. So going to take some scissors like I just showed you, or you can take a nail file, an emery board if you want, or some sandpaper, and just file down those edges flat. Go careful when you're doing that, and then you just put it back into the mould. So you turn it round the other way and you put it back into the mould. And then I made a decision on what butterflies I was going to place where and in which coaster. So, and I was going to place them like this. Now, I wasn't going to try and stick them down with resin or just put resin over the top. I do love that sheen and that effect though. Look at that. I decided to use some super glue. So this is the final decision that I've made as to what colours are going in what, with what colour combinations we're going to go in what coaster. And then just applying super glue down to them and then pressing them down as firmly as I could onto the coaster. Now you do need to make sure that these butterflies are below the top level of the mould. If they're not, then you are going to end up having to do either a flood coat over the top of them, as well as this coat, as well as the coat of resin you're going to see me do. You'll end up having then to do a flood coat as well. Now I made sure that all of them did not come up to the top surface of the mould, and that made this a lot easier for us, a lot easier. There we go. Because if you don't, you're going to have an uneven cure. You're going to have a coaster that you can't put a cup or glass on or a mug on because it's not level when you put, the cup, mug or glass on it. And that's then a coaster that you can't use as a coaster. So there we go. I applied them using the super glue there, as you can see. I did wipe away as much of the residue of glue as I could, but at this point most of it had set solid and I knew that the clear resin would cover it up. So there we are, all 4 of those. Looking beautiful. Wayne mixed up some more ghoul resin. Again, it's a 1-to-1 mixing ratio, and it's clear. It's got a few little bubbles in it there, but they would degas. If you want to, you can just let it stand for a couple of minutes or so, let the bubbles naturally degas, or you can put it through a, if you've got the gas, the debubbling, I'm going to call it, chamber tool from Resiners. So I'm probably not very good at describing that. Then put the resin through that, and it will get rid of it, disperse all the bubbles for you. If not, you can use a long-necked lighter. I didn't say nose this time. Long-necked lighter with the flame, just a tiny bit, hover it over the top, and it will burst the surface bubbles. Don't use a torch. Don't use a flame torch, because it may set the resin on fire. You might burn the mould, you might cause the resin to fuse to the mould, and then you can't use your mould, you can't use the coaster, you'd have to throw it away. So Wayne's just carefully pouring the clear resin over the top there. It's making them even more shiny, which is great, that's what we want, and he's just making sure that it goes all the way to the top surface of that mould, the top part of it. So we get a nice even cure, and also just checking that it is completely covering the full surface and height or depth of those butterflies. Just topping it up there with a little bit more. Lovely. What we also tend to do as well, whenever we've used resin and before it's, we've just poured the resin in, we let it sit for about 5 minutes, and then we go over with some isopropyl alcohol and just give it a little bit of spritz using the atomizer bottle we've got with the isopropyl alcohol, just to make sure that any little surface bubbles that haven't popped are then popped using that alcohol. There we go. So he did also go around the very edges of this with a micro brush, just to make sure that it was all up to the edges of them. You can use a heat tool if you prefer to. Totally up to you what you feel comfortable doing. There we go. I think we've got one more coming up. Yeah, look at that. Lovely gold butterfly. I really love the purple one as well, actually. It was quite difficult choosing which colour butterflies I was going to put in these, but came to a decision. There we go. Just waiting to let this resin itself levels. Obviously, when you're using resin, do make sure that you're also working on a level work surface area. That is very, very important. That is just as it's more important that you use the right amount of PPE. So gloves, respirator mask, protect your clothing, work in a well ventilated area. But also then, before you even start with the resin, make sure that you're working on a completely level surface. There we go. So he's just using a little stir stick there, just to get rid of a few surface bubbles and just to make sure that the butterflies are completely coated with the resin. There we go. And here is a close-up. Now, this is them in all their glory. I think they look stunning. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've just realised we didn't show you the demould, but that's absolutely fine. You can, of course, put cork backing on these and they would show up even more. You could put white polyurethane resin on the backs of them and they would be even deeper on the back, so you'd have an opaque finish which would show them up even more, which shows on when they're down on that white sheet there. I hope you've enjoyed part 2 of this collection of videos. If you've not seen part 1, link will be in the description for it. Pop back, have a look. This is it, the full collection. So you've got the coasters, the 2 beautiful tea light holders, and that gorgeously, stunningly beautiful trinket tray with Mr. Dragonfly. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for us, and we will see you again very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.